Hello everybody, welcome back to the video, and for the July section of the Doctor Who list videos building up to the 60th anniversary, of which I've already covered the Regeneration stories and the Doctors, I figured this time would be the perfect opportunity to rank the Christmas specials, especially with a new one coming later this year. So let's just get into this. We have 14 because I am including the Unquiet Dead, but I'm not including anything for New Year's. Only instance of that is the End of Time Part 2. So let's get into this. Yeah, the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe is definitely the weakest one. I don't know why. I mean, you had a really great one the previous year with the Christmas Carol. And you've got a pretty underrated one, I think, with the Snowmen the following year. This is sort of the only dud of the Christmas specials of the Matt Smith era. And really the show in general, because I like pretty much all of them apart from this one. There's not great child acting. And Matt Smith just really isn't on top form. Plus, there's also not a great villain. I think you've got to have a good villain, or at least an interesting supporting cast, none of which are in this story. You've got the Doctor, and he's okay in this one. This is a decent Smith performance, somewhat, kind of, a little bit, maybe. Not great, but definitely more watchable than some of the other stories from the era. So let's continue onwards. So, number 13, The Runaway Bride. This one's never really clicked with me. This is the introduction of Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. And you know what? One of my favorite companions. However, her introduction is not great. This is, I think this is before the 13th Doctor's first story. This is the weakest companion introduction, in my opinion. I am honestly just saying that. Her character is just so different from when she actually joins. In this episode, she is really annoying in this one. The villain, also not a great villain, but David Tennant is really good in this one. And I like the fact that you get essentially a comedy right after Doomsday, which was a great decision on Russell T Davies' part. Davies, one of the two, or pronounced many different ways. But yeah, it's pretty good, but I do prefer other ones. We move from one of the oldest to the most recent with number 12, Twice Upon a Time. Okay, so I talked about this one in my Regeneration Stories video. There's stuff I really like, particularly that last 15 minutes or so. Starting with the Christmas truce, the rest of this story is incredible. The issue is everything before that. David Bradley is really good at bringing the First Doctor back to life. And I think that that's a good decision, and would not mind seeing him in more stories. Beyond a cameo. So, I mean, it's a fine story. I've discussed it before in a previous video, but Christmassiness, there's a lot of snow, and there's the Christmas truce from World War II, a really cool historical event. But this is mainly about sending off the 12th Doctor and filling in that gap for the First Doctor of what did he do before his regeneration. And yeah, that's really it. Let's move on. So number 11 is The End of Time. Unfortunately, the Christmas half of this is the one that has the most problems. Because you get a really great cliffhanger. I'll just start with that. The reveal of Timothy Dalton as Rassilon. One of my favorite moments of the David Tennant era, I think. Really great stuff in here, but it's not very Christmassy. And you're going to notice that with particularly the next one on the list is that, it's not very Christmassy. I get it. It's focused on sending off David Tennant, maybe the most popular Doctor ever. But as a Christmas special and New Year's, really, it kind of fails. So let's move on. So number 10 is The Return of Dr. Mysterio. They just throw Christmas out the window, say, hey, here's a fun superhero episode. And you know what? I don't mind. It's fun. Not the best in the world, but I don't mind it. It's fun. Especially, there's one part that's really funny where they're watching the security cameras, the bad guys, and the doctor just turns and starts talking to them. They're like, how? This is old footage. That moment is just great, unless I'm misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure that's how it went down. But I mean, this is a good Capaldi performance. You know, you can tell that, particularly with that ending monologue of everything ends. That's a really good monologue. Might be Capaldi's most underrated moment, and that's coming off the back of losing a longtime companion and what was probably going to be the last meeting with River with the previous year's Christmas special, which I'll get to later. So there's a lot going on for 12 at this point. So honestly, after a lot of heavy stories, honestly, I think it's okay to have a little bit of fun. Not very Christmassy, but pretty good. So let's move on. Okay, the next Doctor at number 9, the most clickbait title. It starts off being a multi-doctor story. Except it's not, because it's a guy who thinks he's the Doctor. Yeah, I mean, having the Cybermen involved is fine. They're interesting here. The giant robot Cybermen, definitely one of the most memorable images of the era. But the idea of setting it in old Victorian England, I feel like it was used better in a different episode. But this is still pretty fun. It was the start of the build up to Ten's exit. So pairing him up with another, air quotes, Doctor is, good idea. It's fun. But I do think there are better Christmas specials. So we move on to the Christmas Invasion at number 7. No, wait, sorry, number 8. Sorry, looked at the wrong number. Anyway, yeah, number 8, the Christmas Invasion. Not a lot of the Doctor. So it's mainly a Rose episode. I'm kind of 50-50 on Rose. Sometimes she's good, sometimes she's not. She's at her best, I think, with 9. Although 10 and Rose are a pretty fun comedic pairing, honestly. Pretty underrated. Comedically, they're underrated. But this episode, pretty good. Probably Billie Piper's best performance, apart from Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways, I'd be willing to say. She had a really good streak of episodes there. But this is a fun episode. It was the first Christmas special apart from the Feast of Stephen, which was back in the 60s. So the first actual Christmas special. And it's fine. But its biggest concern is introducing David Tennant, and thus Christmas kind of takes a backseat. Although the Santa robots are kind of cool. So, yeah. Okay, Time of the Doctor is next. And I just gotta say, I think this one should have been 2 episodes. It really should have been. There's so much going on here. You have the Weeping Angels, you have the Cybermen, you have Trenzalore, you have the Daleks, the Doctor running out of regenerations, old age catching up with 11, that great clock tower scene and regeneration scene. Honestly, Moffat, you can judge him as much as you want. He knew how to write a climax, except in the name of the Doctor. But anyway, that's a small point. But Time of the Doctor was a really good one when it focused on the 11th Doctor, which is the other big issue. It spends way too much time on Clara. The whole thing should have been a Trenzalore story, or maybe season 8 itself should have been about Trenzalore. And then the finale could have been Smith's regeneration. Or make it a 2-parter. I don't know. Yeah, either way, it's fun, but I do prefer other ones, but still really good. Next up, number 6, Voyage of the Darned. Okay, I gotta say here, um, this is this is my favorite David Tennant Christmas special. I like, uh, I really like the design of the Space Titanic, to be honest, and it has probably the coolest way of the Doctor saying, "I'm the Doctor," in the entire show's history. And I don't mind Kylie Minogue. I did not know that she was a big deal when I was watching this one. In fact, this is actually the first place I had ever heard of her. But she's fine. And you know what? She actually would have been a good companion with David Tennant as the Doctor. Just saying. But in general, I like the design, and this is also the introduction for Wilfred Mott, who will be returning for some scenes in this year's 60th anniversary. So that is really great that this was his first episode. And honestly, just a really fun episode. So yeah, let's move on to the top 5. Number 5 is Last Christmas. Not an episode in which the Doctor teams up with George Michael. No, and so you get the much more realistic pairing of the Doctor and Santa Claus. Because why not? Honestly, kind of shocking that it took this long for the Doctor to team up with Santa. It does create a minor plot hole with the Doctor not thinking that Santa is real, because in the 11th Doctor's era, he pulled out a picture of him playing poker with Santa and Albert Einstein. So, yeah, there's a plot hole that I don't think Moffat realized that he had wrote, but yep. But, I mean, this episode is pretty fun. Nick Frost, best name for a guy to play Santa ever. He's really good in the role. A little bit more of a sarcastic Santa than, say, Elf or the Santa Claus. But a fun interpretation, a fun, different interpretation of the character. Only issue, this should have been Clara's departure. This would have been a great ending note for her, and would have resulted in maybe the best companion departure of the revival. They passed up several great opportunities for her to leave. Death in Heaven, Last Christmas, Face the Raven. Just saying, they passed up 3 really good opportunities to write her off. If she had departed here, I honestly think this story would be a little bit higher. But she didn't. She stays around, and so, because apparently this was actually supposed to be her departure, and then she decided to stay on at the last minute, so they had to write a little extra scene. So yeah, let's get on to the top 4. Number 4 is The Snowman. Best TARDIS reveal, I gotta say. Best performance of Jenna Coleman as Clara. Really, I think a lot of people would agree that Victorian Clara is the best interpretation of the character. This is also the way a lot of people, probably myself included, got introduced to the Great Intelligence. And until I saw The Web of Fear, this was the best example of the character. Still, a really fun story that has some pretty cool acting in it. And if you want to see Magneto pretend to be an evil snowman, this is the story for you. So, just barely misses out on the top 3 because I have a little more fun watching the top 3 than this one, but still definitely one of my favorites of the Smith era, maybe even top 5. So, let's get into the top 3. The Unquiet Dead is... Some people would argue it's not a Christmas special. I'm going to argue it is, because it is set at Christmas. It's got Charles Dickens. It's got ghosts. It's essentially a Christmas Carol, but not. Even though it aired in April. Yeah, I was going to put this on here because A, Ninth Doctor story. Great. Glad to see the first Doctor and one of the best get a Christmas episode. And two, I just think this was a lot of fun. This is the most underrated Ninth Doctor story, in my opinion. And one of my favorites. I absolutely love this one. You get one of my favorite interpretations of a historical character in the show with Charles Dickens. And like I said, it's just fun. So, yeah, let's move on to the top two. Alright, my runner-up is A Christmas Carol. So, I think a lot of people have this one at number one, and I can't blame them. This one's fun. I mean, of course, the Doctor would ultimately use Charles Dickens to eventually figure out a problem, and I like the execution here. I am shocked that I did not realize that this was the guy that played Dumbledore, playing Kazran Sardick, the Scrooge of the story. The 11th Doctor does some questionable things throughout his tenure, but using the TARDIS to rewrite a man's history to fit his own goals might be one of the darkest, but it results in such a fun episode you can kind of ignore it, because this episode is really fun. Not my favorite Smith episode, but definitely my second favorite. And I'd say one of my maybe top 20, maybe top 15 favorite Doctor Who stories. Really good, really fun, but not number one. Oh, also, Amy and Rory cameo in this one. Well, it's a little more than a cameo. They have a pretty decent role, but yeah. Also, the Doctor gets married to Marilyn Monroe in this story. Yeah. So, yeah, let's move on to my top pick. So my number one pick is The Husbands of River's Song. And in my opinion, this is the funniest Doctor Who episode there is. If I want to watch an episode that will make me laugh, I put this one on. Because Peter Capaldi and Alex Kingston is the funniest Dr. River combo in the show's history. They're absolutely hilarious. Speaking of funny moments, Capaldi's TARDIS reaction might be my favorite moment of the entire era. I know you got these grand moments, such as How Many Seconds in Eternity from Heaven Sent, and the regeneration scene from Twice Upon a Time. I don't care. The TARDIS reaction might be my favorite Capaldi scene. This is my favorite 12th Doctor story as well. Very funny. Very good. The villain of this one isn't that great, but that's part of the joke. He's a bad guy. Not in the sense of evil villain. I'm referring to the fact that he is a, funny at being a villain. You've got this giant robot suit that just straight up disintegrates its own head. This story is full of moments that are so funny that I cannot start to talk about some of them without laughing. So, yeah, and then you also get just that ending. Wow, you go from the funniest story to a great ending from this story with the Singing Towers ending. Maybe my favorite ending of any Christmas special from Doctor Who. Just such a great performance. And to me, this is Alex Kingston's best performance as a song. Maybe Capaldi's best performance as the 12th Doctor, apart from Heaven Sent. Again, he was really on fire in 2015. So, I mean, the story is just great. Just go watch it. But anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe. And Merry Christmas. Bye.